Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm coming to you with another edition of Rudy's Common Sense, and this one is going to be a little bit different because it's going to involve interviews with Cuban Americans who are very familiar with Cuba, the current Cuba, and they'll tell us what's really going on in Cuba rather than being subjected to the propaganda that we get in the left-leaning press, which also seems to have a soft spot for communism, and not much of a soft spot for the freedom, democracy, and liberty that we have here in the United States. So we'll get it right from the proverbial horse's mouth. The people who are talking to the people in Cuba, and a few of them, people who have put their lives at risk numerous times to try to free their country, including a great hero, Felix Rodriguez, who also came and volunteered and helped us in the Vietnam War. So these are people with great credibility. They're not politicians. The mayor will be here, of course, to introduce it, and he's been 100% on this issue because his own family is involved in it. So we're going to have a very, very interesting podcast that hopefully educates the American people. Welcome to the Versailles restaurant in the heart of Little Havana. You know, this restaurant has a great history, and when finally, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, Cuba is liberated, and many of these people can go back to their homeland and help rebuild it and still remain Americans, dual citizenship like we have in so many cases. I mean, this place will be recorded in history as kind of the Francis Tavern of the Cuban resistance. This is the place where everybody met. This is the place where everybody made plans. And this is the place that if you're serious about running for office in this place, you better have an event. I've been here so often for political events, I feel a little unusual in my role as a reporter and a questioner, but I'll try. We're going to start, as we should, with the mayor of Miami, because this is the locus. And like many people don't realize about a mayor, because I do, it's a much more complicated job than you think. You got to be a foreign policy expert. And if you're mayor of Miami, you better know about Cuba. And this man knows a lot about Cuba. And I'm going to ask him to give me his view, because it'll be a very informed one, of what happened. Mayor Suarez is second term now?
That's right. Well, about to be, hopefully now in November.
Yeah, well. You're leading by so much. We never count on polls.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
And but I mean, he's doing an excellent job. We're going to talk about that a little bit because I think it might be helpful to mayors in other places that this place has a hold on crime. And it wasn't always that way in Miami. Miami has been at times the crime capital of America.
Yep.
So, Mayor Suarez, thank you very much.
Mayor, thank you so much for inviting me.
Joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, can I start with what you said on the 11th of July? When this broke out in Santiago de los Banos?
Yep.
Banos. Did you know what was going to happen, or were you as shocked as all of us?
I was as shocked as everyone. I think the Cuban government was taken by surprise. I think the U.S. government was taken by surprise.
That's my belief. I mean, I don't have the inside information, but I think that's right.
I mean, to see something that was spontaneous in over 40 cities and towns across the island of Cuba, there's nothing that's even approximated that. I think in 1994, there was some spontaneous, in Havana, which is the capital, but we've never seen something so broad. And obviously there's a lot of reasons why, and there's game-changing reasons like the internet and social media that didn't exist very, very prevalently in the 1990s. But I think what's important is that people have lost their fear. And that is something that the regime has always used against the people, is the fear, the repression, and it's something that was incredibly inspiring to us here in Miami.
Well, I mean, I was completely shocked by it,
Yeah.
and from everything I know, people I talk to in Washington, this is not a criticism now of the administration. Right. I do that enough.
Yeah.
But they were surprised, and I think you had Trump been president, he would have been surprised.
Sure.
But it says something very, very important. I mean, if it's true, and I think it is, that this was basically spontaneous based on social media, this thing affected the whole island within 2 hours. And within 2 hours, the island was, I have a little map here, within 2 hours, the island was just,
Wow, look at that.
look at that. I mean,
That's incredible.
I looked at this and I said, my goodness, it's all the way from Baracoa to Mantua on the other side.
Yep.
Poof,
Yep.
the whole
Completely
island.
comprehensive.
And of course the big push is in,
Concentration, right?
but still you got it all over the place. So how did this happen? What's going on there that's so different now than, look, they've been oppressed
Yeah.
for years. They've been starving for years.
Yeah.
There have been sanctions since '61, at times less than this, at times more than this. What's going on?
You know, what's interesting about this is, you know, for many, many years here in the Cuban exile community, it was about what happened in the 1960s. And the fact that, you know, so many, my father, my grandparents, you know, their properties were taken, their businesses were taken, they were exiled out of their country. That was the fight for many, many years. What's interesting about this particular moment is these children, these men and women were children of the revolution. They were brainwashed to become communists or to be communists from the moment they were born.
100%.
And they have seen through the fraud and the fact that this system of government is an abject failure. It's failed everywhere in the history of humanity that's been tried. And you know, when I think about the hundreds of thousands of people that have been killed by this regime, by this government, you know, you put that in the balance of the millions of people who have had their hopes and dreams taken away. You know what it is to be an adult, 20 years old, 25 years old, and to not have hopes and dreams because you know that there's nothing to look forward to in your country. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where, you know, someone who was born and raised on this communist ideology realizes that it's a complete fraud, that the only ones that are benefiting are the upper echelon, you know, the president and and the generals and things like that. And so, you know, our hope is that this is one of those moments in time that we've seen throughout the history of humankind, where the people are able to liberate themselves. And frankly, I think it's also an opportunity for the United States to demonstrate leadership. And as you said, as a mayor of a city like New York and Miami, we have to know what's happening. In your case, you were talking about in the Middle East, you're talking about, you know, in Greece and in Macedonia. For us, it's in South America and Central America and Haiti. You know, what's happening in...
beyond Cuba. I mean, people should realize sometimes they still have
Venezuela.
They have the view of Miami, you know,
right,
beautiful beaches and parties. And this is the capital in America for Latin America and South America.
No doubt.
This is the first place people there think of to come and to do business. Now, they may go a lot of places from here, but this is the locus of it. Well, the way New York was for people from Europe.
Yep.
So you got to keep up on all of these things, but this is the current one right now. How is it affecting the Cuban Americans in Miami? Are they hopeful? They seem that they're very hopeful.
They're very inspired. There's a saying that says, si Cuba está en la calle, Miami también, meaning that if Cubans are on the streets, we're going to be on the streets. And we want to demonstrate solidarity with the Cuban people, that we're demonstrating that we're here to emotionally support them. We're here to put pressure on our own government, because we're Americans. I was born here in this country. I'm an American.
Right.
And I'm very proud of the moments on both Republican and Democratic administrations in the history of humanity where the U.S. has intervened to help people become free. We have lost.
That's our mission in the world.
It has been. And I remember, a Colin Powell quote where he once said that the only land we ever took was enough land to bury the dead bodies of the people.
Isn't that true? No,
and so
isn't that true?
We've never had territorial ambitions as a country. We just want people to be free.
Maybe this is an opportunity for us to give Americans a reminder with all this bad attacks by Black Lives Matter and this group and that group about how awful we are and how terrible we are, that this is a country that has given up more lives to free other countries than any country in the history of the world. And as you said, not the way England did it, not the way Rome did it, not the way to take an empire, but just to have peace. To have good trading partners.
Listen, it's amazing. My parents came when my dad came when he was 12.
Tell me your personal background, because these are so instructive to people who might not know it.
So it's a great story. My dad is the ninth of 14 kids. He came when he was 12 years old to this country. My mother, the ninth of 14.
Well, let's tell him your dad was the first.
He was the first Cuban mayor of Miami. Yes.
His first name?
His Xavier Suarez.
Xavier,
he might have been mayor right around the time you were.
I know.
Yeah,
I worked with him. He's a very fine mayor. Tough guy.
Yes. And so he was.
Was he a tough father?
No, he was a good guy. He's a good guy.
He was a tough mayor.
Yeah, he was. 72 years old now. But so, he came when he was 12. My mom came when she was 6. My dad was blessed to get full scholarships to high school, to college, to
You know, I called you the first time I saw you. I called you for about 6 months, Xavier Suarez.
yeah, it's okay.
I couldn't
Most
get your
people do
father-
though.
I
It's
couldn't-
okay.
I couldn't get your father out of your mind.
I'm Francis Xavier, like the Jesuit saint.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, I know it. It's Francis
Yeah.
Xavier. It's a very common
Sure.
name for a Catholic.
Sure.
But I would just say Xavier Suarez. Xavier
Yeah,
Suarez.
it's okay. It's okay. It happens all the time.
But I also want to get to another thing. We are suffering throughout America with what has to be described as a crime epidemic.
Yeah.
Particularly in the older cities, particularly
Yeah.
in the northeastern and midwestern cities.
Sure.
I mean, 100% increase in murder,
Yeah.
100% increase in shooting. Your crime rate is down. It's
Yep.
been down for a couple of years.
Yep.
Before COVID, through COVID, and down again.
Yep.
I came here as Associate Attorney General for Ronald Reagan because this place in 1981 and 82 had become a crime capital.
Yep.
I mean, you were a bad city.
Yep.
So what are you doing that you can
Just-
share with your brother and sister mayors?
Just to give you a perspective of how bad it was in the 80s. In 1980, the murder rate was 220. We were the murder capital of the United States, like you said. This last year, the year before, we had 54, which was the second lowest rate since like the 1950s. So, yep. And we've done it sort of the old-fashioned way. You know, while cities across America are defunding their police, guess what we did? We increased funding for our police. We had the
I'm
most.
almost laughing because it's such common sense.
We have the most police officers we've ever had in our history. And guess what? Shocking correlation. Crime went down. More police officers, crime went down. And then we've armed our officers, who are phenomenal, with the latest technological tools.
Now, tell me the two things you have. You just got about
So
a
we have-
minute left.
we have
I
a
want people
gunfire-
to know about this.
We have a gunfire detection system called ShotSpotter. So I know what
Shot spotter.
Yep. I know with GPS precision, anytime a gunshot is fired in my city, instantly. Okay. And the second thing is we have,
Shot spotter.
Yep.
Remember that, mayors.
Yep.
Go look at it.
and there's a second generation with drones that we have to look at. And then we also have something called an ABIN machine, so we can get ballistics for guns that are used in homicides. So we can, and we don't need to go to the FBI. We can do that ourselves in house.
Can I just claim a little credit?
Sure.
How much did Timothy contribute to you guys thinking technological?
He did a lot. He did a lot.
He was at number 3 in command when I was.
He was phenomenal. You know, we went 24 months, I think, without a police-involved shooting here in Miami. So he did a great job for training.
You know, and that was always a problem for us too.
Yeah.
They would lead to those riots.
Yep, of course.
That's what I was in law enforcement. So I have to really congratulate you.
Thank you, man.
Because you're doing actually you're taking the old-fashioned
Yep.
remedies that still work.
And we're later on.
You're bringing in the new
Exactly.
technology. I can't think of Miami being in better hands during a very tough period like this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it.
You have to deal with COVID. You got to deal with the rest of the immigration problems.
That's
You got to
right.
deal with crime.
Everything.
And all of a sudden now you got a big disruption. But this may be a good thing, man.
And I'm going to be president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors beginning January 1st. So
could I ask one last question?
Sure.
Do you guys share information quite a bit?
we do, and I want to
do
have
that.
an agenda for
That
urban
helped me a
America.
lot.
I want to have an agenda for urban America that talks about low taxes, more police officers,
to-
and technology
I'd like
economy.
us, if you don't mind, I'd like us at some point in the near future to do a thing just on that for the benefit of the other
Of course,
mayors. Okay.
of course. You got it.
Thank you, man.
Take care, man. Good to
God
see
bless
you.
you and
Bless you
good
too.
luck. And I'm sure Dad's very proud.
Thank you. I'm sure he is.
It's now time to take a short break. I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Well, we're back now with two very, very interesting guests and two people that know a great deal about this. Carmen Valdivia and Maximo Alvarez. And both of them are going to explain in their own way how they come to know so much about this. Carmen is the executive director of the Museum of the Cuban Diaspora. This is the Cuban diaspora, people who left Cuba, but maintain a great, great ongoing interest in their country because they feel it needs to be fixed. And Maximo Alvarez owns Sunshine Gasoline Distributors. He's one of the biggest gasoline distributors in Florida. And he was born in Cuba and in 1948, which makes him younger than me. And both of them share in common something they're going to explain to you, coming here on a program called Pedro Pan, which was in the mid-50s. So let me start with you, Carmen, and let's first go to what is happening right now, and then you can tell us your background, because both are very important. Okay. So this was a surprise to you. It was July 11, and to you also? Okay, so there's nobody that wasn't surprised by this.
No, it caught me completely by surprise. As a matter of fact, I wasn't expecting anything like that. And then it made me so proud that they only asked for liberty, which means freedom, because people like to say that they're asking for COVID vaccines or food or anything. It's liberty. They can Google it, and it means freedom. And that's all they're asking for. And it just breaks my heart to see that all they want is a chance. You know, they don't want fish. They want to fish for themselves. All they want is a chance to live in freedom.
So it breaks out in Santiago de los Banos, which is a fairly small city outside of Havana.
Right.
All of a sudden, within 3 hours, it's all across the country. That's a remarkable map.
Incredible.
Right.
When I saw this map, I said, this is a real revolution. I've seen a couple, and I know pretty much when they're at the tip. This is at the tip. Now, this happened, and I guess there's a lot of cynicism about it, but this happened, as far as I know, spontaneously. By social media. How do they accomplish this? So you have a breakout in Santiago. How all of a sudden are you getting a breakout in Mantua all the way over here, and over by Guantanamo?
It's amazing. It's amazing how they could communicate, because all the communications are restricted in Cuba by the government.
Right.
Because there's no freedom. So it's amazing how these people were able to manage at the same time go out in the street, which shows you the desperation that these people must have. And as Carmen said, they're not asking for anything. They're just asking for freedom. And what a lesson to our country. They're waving the American flag. And here we burn it.
They're waving it respectfully. When I see the American flag in a demonstration now, I feel like I want to go take it. I almost did it during COVID. There was a demonstration in Brooklyn, and these people are, sort of putting the flag down. And I told the cops, get the flag away from them. That thing's going to be on the floor in a minute.
And what is amazing is we are probably the only country that enjoys that freedom. We're probably the only hope that these people have. And here, we burn the flag. Yeah. And we don't say anything simply because we have the right to do so, which, by the way, a lot of people have died to protect the right to do that.
Yes.
But at least be grateful. Mm-hmm. At least understand, why does everybody want to come over here? Why do these people who burn the flag,
we're systemically racist?
Why don't they go?
Why do you want to come to a systemically racist country?
But everybody seems to do it. I don't see any lines here to leave.
No.
Everybody wants to come here.
I don't see any boats heading to Cuba.
No. Correct.
I see boats heading to the U.S.
And Mayor, you know what is so sad? Mayorga, who happens to be a Cuban, in charge of immigration, do not want these people to come over, but he's got the border open to anybody. But you know what? They are afraid. You know why? Because the people in Cuba now know what communism is like.
Why don't you explain who Maximo's talking about? He's talking about the new head of the Department of Homeland Security, who's supposed to be really, this guy's in charge of a lot of things for us.
Exactly.
To keep us safe, including hacking and all this other thing that's going on like crazy, which he seems to not have a clue about.
No.
But he makes a ridiculous statement like a threat. Don't you come over or we'll stop you. Now, okay, I can understand that, but not if you're letting in 150,000 people a month, and you don't check them for COVID.
Right.
I know that a bunch of those people are MS-13 because they come up to New York and they terrorize towns in New York, every place else, Massachusetts, all over the country. They chop people's heads off to start.
But those will become Democrats. The ones who understand communism will never be a Democrat.
Both. The
Okay.
guy who chopped the head off,
Hey.
and then the guy who dies becomes a Democrat. Because then he gets the vote. I mean, that's a very kind thing
It's
the
true.
Democrats do.
It's true.
That is good.
For the dead people, they get a chance to,
Yes, they do.
Well, in any event,
That is good.
when you heard this, what did it say to you about where things are in Cuba? And have you been hearing that for the last couple of years? Because I know both of you maintain contact with people in Cuba.
Right.
Do you have relatives there?
Not that I know. Most of the people that I left behind have died already. So I have cousins, but I haven't met them because they
Any
were
of
born
them-
after
any
I
of them-
left.
Any of them by virtue of the regime?
I don't know because I don't have contact
Yeah.
with them. But
And you left, and you,
I do have friends in
Pedro Pan was what, 1950?
from 1960 to 1962.
Oh, so I thought it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
1960 to
To
1960.
1962, yes. December of 1962, January.
So everybody came at approximately
October.
the same time.
Yeah, 22 months for 14,000 children.
And explain what it was. It was
Okay. As I said, between December of 1960 and October 1962, 14,000 Cuban children were sent to the U.S. by their parents in order to avoid indoctrination by the nascent revolutionary government. Schools have been nationalized. Nuns and priests that used
right
to.
away.
Uh,
Well, it came in
it
at
took them
59.
2 years. Yeah, they came in, and then in 61 is when they nationalized the schools and threw out the nuns and the priests that used to educate us, and then they closed all schools for restructuring, and then 8 months later they opened new books, new history, everything was new,
So
and Marxism was the law of the land. So then our parents said, no, you're not going to that
Would
school.
I be wrong or being sort of flippant if I said they were doing something like teaching critical race theory
Yes,
and teaching them 1619 that America was founded for,
yes,
for
yes.
slavery?
Yes, it was very anti-imperialistic, and also they changed history. Everything was different.
And they were also very anti-religion.
Yes, the religion was outlawed, and you have to become a Marxist, and that's when our parents, most Pedro Pans were people of faith. We had 93% of us were Catholic. We had 396 Jewish Pedro Pan and about 700 Protestants, and so our families were people of faith, and they refused to have us become literal Marxist. And so they decided that to part with us was better than to have us indoctrinated.
Well, how did Castro go for this? And why would he agree to this? He's trying to keep you all there in subjugation. Why does he let a group of
Just
people
let
go?
me add to what she said. They even made it illegal to call a child a biblical name. That's how extreme they went. How did he do this? He did this by completely lying to everybody, simply because Batista had lost control of the island because of all the terrorism that was taking place. He used to call it Guerra de Guerrillas, where you could not go out to a movie at night because a bomb will explode. So it got to the point that people were fed up with that, and they thought that this is the new beginning, this is the future, because he promised things that are unbelievable. Promised things like La Reforma Agraria, the agrarian reform, where actually the agrarian reform, the way he proposed it, was nothing but profit sharing, something that we have in America. But it was not like that. That's what people thought.
Mm-hmm.
He offered health care, which is what we already had in Cuba, because in Cuba, for $1.29 a month, you had access to the hospital and the best
So
doctors.
it started falling apart right from the beginning.
Right from
In
the
about a
beginning,
month,
he started
everything-
changing.
In about a month, everybody started seeing, you had communists being put in
But why-
positions
why-
of power.
Why did this dictator who wants to control everything, why did he let these people go?
Because we would be the people that would give him problems.
you were paying his-
Yes,
Right.
and so it was easier. He always is very good about. The only thing he knows how to do is repression, because economy and everything else he
Yeah,
fails.
yeah.
But then he knew that we would be giving problems, so he always has this escape valve, as he's had along the way. With Marioca and Mariel and all that. So this was the first escape valve. He would let us out. We were Catholic. We were trained. We would not go for his re-education, and so it's better to let us out. And also, then if our parents followed, he would get a house for the peasants. And he said this in speeches: "Let the Bitongos go," which is like
the rich people,
I would
the
imagine
privilege.
Exactly.
he had no conception of how successful you were.
No.
Because
No.
you pose really, along with the brave people there, they have a kind of support that a lot of people don't have.
Exactly.
They have a community. I mean, I say this to you, and I've known this for years. You're probably one of the most successful immigrant communities ever in the history of America. But not only successful, but boom, quickly successful.
When you think that
which make you very important.
the city of Miami, day after tomorrow, the 28th is going to be 125 years old. It's his birthday. 62 of those years, so half, Cubans have been in Miami. Now, if you take a look at Havana in 1959 and Havana now, and compare it to Miami in 1959 and Miami now, you can see what we have done. And
we'll be back with Carmen and Maximo, because this is a very, very important and critical issue that we're getting to, because evaluating the chances of this happening are very, very important to us. But most important, if you can bring liberty to people, then you've accomplished something in your life. And I don't know, it's going to work real well when you go up there and you say, I helped to deliver liberty to them. Let's take a brief pause. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HometitleLock.com. That's HometitleLock.com. Welcome back to our very, very revealing interviews about what's gone on and what's going on in Cuba right now from people who really know. We have with us now Manolo Reyes, who's a commissioner of the city of Miami. He was selected with 57% of the vote.
Yes.
A lot of people would die for that nowadays, but people win by 2 votes.
Well, I worked very hard for it.
I know you did. You're doing a great job. Everyone tells me that. And then we have with us Ricardo Pau Josa.
Yes.
Josa. And Ricardo is an artist. He's an art collector. He's a writer. He is what I would describe as an intellectual, and a very, very well-known one and a very well-respected one. So 2 different perspectives, but both born in Cuba. So let's go to you, Commissioner Manolo.
Yes.
First, you were born in Cuba. Tell us how you came here, as it's been described.
Well, I came in 1959. My father, he was the last mayor of the city of Victoria de las Tunas, and when the revolution came in and when the revolution triumphed, the first group that they were persecuting is anybody that was with any government before them, you see. And my father, although he didn't have any I mean, he wasn't charged with any crime or anything, but they still kept on, I would say, persecuting him.
What would they do?
Well, they will try to get him into the army barracks and to interrogate him, and he said, "I'm not going to go through this." So he got into the Honduran embassy, and afterwards he went to Honduras. He came to the United States, and by October 1958, we were able, me and my sister and my mother, to leave Cuba and come and join him in Miami.
So he effectively took over on January 1st, 1958, and you were out by October.
By October, I was.
And you as children, you were as part of a program.
No, I did. I'm not a Pedro Pan. No.
That came later.
The thing is, it just happened. We always had a close relationship with the United States, my family.
My grandfather studied in New York. My father he went to school in Philadelphia. And we used to come here a lot. I mean, almost every 2 years, we used to come here.
Am I right, or am I, in talking to so many Cuban Americans, I don't detect the same hostility, chip on the shoulder about America that
No.
you do, let's say, in some other South American country. You know, if I were talking to somebody from Argentina or even Venezuela before all this happened, I'd get a certain, or if I talk to somebody from Colombia, they sort of love America. So it's different. I get the sense that there's a great affection for America.
Absolutely, there were a lot of Cubans that they came to school in the United States and
Right.
studied here, and that is why Cuba was so prosperous also, because most of the entrepreneurs that we had in Cuba, they had the background in the United States. If you see, take for example, Cuba was the first country that had TV in Latin America. I mean, a TV station. We had 23 TV stations. I mean, when Castro took over, and that's why because the person that started the TV, I mean, station in Cuba, that person went to school, was an engineer that came to school in the United States.
Right.
We had one general from the Independence War, and he was a president, Menocal. He was a graduate of Cornell. You see. And there were a lot of Cubans that they used to come here, including my father
Right.
and my two uncles that came to Jefferson College, and they became doctors. You see, that was this exchange of Cubans and the United States, and most of the entrepreneurship that it's happened in Cuba.
So America
it was because
America gained a great deal from the community. Now, tell us, let's begin with how you got out first.
Well, I was 6 years old in 1960. The communists have been in power since January '59. My mother and father, we were lower middle class individuals and didn't have any money. And at that time, most of the
what would that
people
mean
were.
in Cuba in that day? Middle class, lower middle class.
Well, there was a burgeoning middle class in Cuba.
Yeah.
Huge middle
These
class.
are people that could support themselves. They just weren't
Yes,
rich.
absolutely. The idea that somehow it was just oligarchs and the rest of the,
Well, that's the impression.
the destitute.
The impression is because
That's part of the
you
propaganda.
had the Batista rich, and then you had abject poverty.
You can't have a revolution without a middle class,
Absolutely right.
right?
Right.
The poor can riot, the poor can rebel, organically like that, but a middle class is what eventually produces.
And what did your parents do? What was their?
My father was a draftsman, industrial construction, steel,
Right.
and my mother was in retail.
And at 6, you were nothing.
I was 6.
You're a kid.
I was a
nice
kid.
Right.
But I remember distinctly the need to flee because my parents understood what was coming. I don't know.
Can you remember it? I mean,
Oh boy!
yeah,
When you go through a trauma
back
like
at
that, you remember.
4,
it.
5, and 6. We have some memories. We don't have others. Something like that, I guess, would stay with you.
Yeah, because I remember the hysteria that suddenly gripped.
And what made them? What was the proximate cause of their leaving? Like,
Well, my parents saw that hysteria and saw it as a threat. Realized that this was, what was coming was a totalitarian state. And I don't know.
did they think they'd be particularly targeted, or they just be part of the group that was going to be suppressed?
They understood that in a totalitarian system, everybody is
Right,
targeted.
right.
Everything is controlled by the state. Everyone is
And
at
how,
the mercy.
how much of it was they didn't want their child to grow up in this? Wasn't that a lot of it?
A lot of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an older sister. We left. We went to Chicago. We had no money.
Well, that's interesting. You must have come to Miami first.
Well, yeah, Miami, but Miami was a very, small, sort of resort kind of place. There wasn't any work here.
no many jobs.
So my father had already been in Chicago, had gone to Chicago a few months earlier to get a job, and we followed suit in December 1960.
Was it easy to get out, or did you have to do things?
At that time, it was we did get a visa at the American Embassy, and that wasn't easy, but we managed it. And then we got on one of the last commercial flights of KLM and came to Miami, and then from there on a train to Chicago.
And the Castro government didn't stop you from leaving?
No, because we weren't, involved in any sort of political stuff, and we didn't
Okay.
have money, so it was, off we went.
So now, when you look at this, what's going on there? Well, first, do you maintain contacts with people in Cuba?
Oh, sure.
Do you?
I do. As a matter of fact, that See, I've been here for 62 years, and I still have a couple of friends left that
You
are
talk
now.
to them on the phone and they tell you.
Well,
They
yes,
gotta be careful though, don't they?
no, yes. I mean, it's now you have in Cuba you have to be careful of whatever you do, because if you talk about cancel culture, well, they are the masters of cancel culture, and then that started at the beginning. If you didn't think like them, if you didn't talk like them, if you didn't go to the concentrations that they had with Castro, Fidel will talk for hours and hours, you were ostracized. You see, you were. I mean, you could lose your job, your ration card, etc., etc. And it is very. I mean, many people they have a lot of fear in what they say. I mean, that's why this. I would say that this all this marches and all this rebellion that is going on in Cuba. It is amazing how brave these people are, because that will could cost them their livelihood.
You know, it part of the shock here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is although the oppression there has been terrible and the stories are terrible and the truth is terrible, there hasn't been anything like this in 62 years, and it spontaneously affected the whole country.
Well, it belies the propaganda that the revolution had shaped a whole new people, and that everything was everybody was now Marxist, and we're all building socialism. The people that live under Marxism know perfectly well what a corrupt and vicious system it is. And when these people are screaming for liberty, they're doing that they hit it on the head. And that's something that most of the leftists in our society are very nervous about, because they're not just crying for food or for this or that. They're really crying for freedom, because they understand that unless you get rid of this totalitarian system, you won't have anything else. Life itself won't even, be worth the struggle.
And how much risk are they in? I mean, I don't think we've covered the fact that within about 4 or 5 hours of this demonstration, the police and the army were out on the streets.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Beating people up, arresting people, shooting
and later
people.
going into their homes,
And
arresting
then they put them in jail,
Right.
and we don't even know how many are in jail.
And
Right.
and then they are now that they're going to summer trials. You see, I mean, people that the family had gone to find trying to find the relatives, and they had already been trial, and they'd sentenced to 1 year, 2 year, 4 years. And I heard that they gave one of the demonstrators 25 years.
And this isn't a trial, really. This is like there's an old story in the West with Judge Roy Bean.
Yes,
We're gonna have to execute the guy. Oh yeah, but let's give him a trial first.
absolutely. The sentence is predetermined before you're guilty.
Oh, yeah.
But
There's no defense attorneys.
no
there's
defense
nothing.
Amnesty International, which is pretty
Yeah.
left, says no lawyer, no witnesses. Kind of like the way the Democrats impeached Trump.
absolutely.
I call this. I'm wondering if Nadler and Shifty Shift aren't there advising them. But we'll be back. We're gonna be back in a short. We'll have time to cover more of this, and we're gonna take a little break now, and then we're gonna come back and go into a little more detail on this.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Oh no, thank
Thank
your
you.
community
Thank you.
for never forgetting what you left behind. Some people would forget it. You didn't. You don't know how much admiration I have for the Cuban American community.
Well, I tell everybody that I have two mothers, the United States and Cuba.
We'll be back shortly with 2 other guests. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of My Pillow, and his team fit me for my very own My Pillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give My Pillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build My Pillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on My Pillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. Welcome back. We have with us Carmen Valdivia, and we have with us Felix Rodriguez, who were with us shortly before. And we want to move on to a slightly different subject. Felix, you have probably been more active than anyone in the hard work of trying to overthrow this regime, including you were involved in the Bay of Pigs. You commanded the group that got rid of K. You've been involved in going into that island surreptitiously and quietly on behalf of the CIA to get information for years, and then you fought in other wars. You're quite a warrior and a great hero to me and to many, many other people. So you probably have the pulse of the Cuban people because you've been in there so much under these highly pressured situations. This is a man, by the way, who's also received some of the highest awards for bravery in the American Army because he fought in Vietnam. I mean, he became a citizen so he could get into the Army to go fight in Vietnam, but we had people running to Canada. So we got to admire this man. So what's your evaluation of what happened and what will happen? I mean, where does this go from here? Now that this has happened, how do you evaluate it and where does it go from here?
Well, really, this was a very big surprise to all of us, what happened that day. Nobody expected. And it's extremely important what happened because it was a popular uprising in one city that was not organized. It was the outbreak of the people that are up to here with the regime, that they cannot stand anymore in San Miguel de los Baños. And then they start sending pictures of that situation all over Cuba. And amazingly, without any coordination, it was an explosion. It means that the Cuban people had it up to here. They really cannot stand it anymore. The fact that they don't have medicine, they don't have food. For the first time, they don't have what to eat. Before, there was what they call escasez. You had lack of abundance of food. But now, they don't have any food.
I read, is this true, 8 hours on a bread line just to get a piece of bread?
Absolutely. And also, they're beginning to have those shortages of electricity. So somebody who have a little bit of food in the refrigerator and it will go bad because of this thing, it was an explosion that nobody expected. I really believe this is the beginning of the end of that regime. Now, the important thing is to be able to reestablish in there the communication. They will be able to have the internet to communicate with one another.
Would that be one practical thing that a Biden administration, the U.S. could do? Just superimpose it? We're capable of doing it. We're capable of superimposing an internet for the whole island.
Absolutely.
That'd be better than what they have.
Absolutely. We do have the technology. I remember when I was in Vietnam, with the technical service, the CIA had things that nobody knew that we had it.
We still do.
Right, and then it's the situation here even more. The problem is that they probably don't want the enemy to know how the technology is going to work.
Carmen, and for you've never seen anything like this in your experience as a Cuban American. So what do you think this means, and how far will it go or can it go?
I think it's something that has happened for the first time. We had never seen anything even remotely like it. And I think I don't think they can, they have repressed it because we don't know what is happening. That's the sad story that, they have been very, very strong in the repression. And because they don't have internet, because that's the first thing that they got back, we have been able to see some things that are horrible, but not the extent to which it has been happening. And so I think it is extremely important for them to have internet. And I know that we have the capability. We're not asking anybody to go and invade Cuba, but please send internet so that we can see what is happening and so that the world can see what is happening there, and so that they can see that we are with them and that they're not alone, that we're as worried about it as they are, and that we're really rooting for them and doing whatever it is in our power to help them. And the important thing is to stop with internet Right now, they're not asking for anything else. And people, oh, let's go send remesas, which means send them money and stuff like that. It goes to the government. And we have been able to see the amount of, their police is better dressed than the one in the United States. They have some suits that is amazing. I mean, it looks like a Star Wars movie. And they have, no, really, if you look at them, it's, I'm like, how can this be? The people don't have anything to eat.
I mean, a lot of people are obviously very sophisticated people from the city. A lot of them are just people from the country and the rural people. They have to frighten the heck out of them, but they still move ahead.
The amount of brand new cars, the amount of brand new buses to bus all these people to come and beat up the protesters. It is amazing the amount of money that they have put into this, and all that money comes from Miami. People trying to send money to their relatives. It has to stop. They have to say the people want liberty. They don't want food. They don't want anything. Let's just concentrate on getting them internet so that we know what is happening. They know what is happening, and the world can see what it is, and then we can see how to solve it. But they have been so brave, and you see children getting beat up in the streets, people getting shot just for standing there and protesting.
So, as a Cuban American with the shortages there, would you be in favor of lifting the sanctions?
No way. The sanctions, so that they.
That was a pretty definitive.
I mean, they're good friends of the Chinese. Everything that we use comes from China. Why can't they buy from China?
Like you wanted to shoot me when I said that.
Why can't they buy from China? And besides, in their stores, all the frozen chicken comes from the United States. All the problem is that they get no credit. Well, if you give them credit, they're not going to pay back. So why should we taxpayers in America pay for what Cuba wants to buy because they want to buy guns with the money that comes that is supposed to go to the people? It's unfair.
Maximo, what from your experience as a warrior and one of the strongest, what should we do? They always make this, I think the lefties do this, they make it all or nothing. Well, are we going to go to war? We overthrew something bigger than this, right? All of Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union. Wouldn't fire a shot. We did it with very, and you were part of it, very crafty, very smart, figure out what they need and irritate them at the right time. We had to sustain starvation in Russia. We had to do it. Worth it now. People in Poland can go to church. They weren't able to go to church. People in Poland can control the education of their own children now. They couldn't do it. It was worth it to them to sacrifice. So what would you do if you could sit down with the president of everyone that you have with presidents? Oh, by the way, have they asked your advice?
It will be that they never do it, but in this
But
situation.
I mean, I would do it if I were the president, even if you're on the other side, because my goodness, I haven't been there. You have.
Right.
So, but tell me, what are the 3 or 4 things that they could do short of war or military intervention that would keep this thing going?
Well, the first thing is definitely open up the communication, no matter what. Force them to be able to open the communication. Second, I think it was a mistake to take the military option out of the table. They could have said that at the present situation, there is not a possibility of that happening. But they are sending a wrong message to Cuba. They feel right now if they start killing people in the street by the 100, nothing will happen.
So
because they promised they were not going to
How
do it.
much do you think the fear of Ronald Reagan, or let's go to North Korea with Trump, all those things that Trump would say, that the press would say was crazy? Do you know that? I know, because I know North Korea pretty well. That's what kind of moved them to come to the table. They were afraid he was going to do
Absolutely.
it. And this guy, I mean, they look at him, and they're better than I am if they can understand what he's saying.
So you have to go in there with a position of strength. Unfortunately, with this president, they don't have it.
And then what else? Practical things can we do?
It would be difficult, really. We have to get the international community involved more to be able to force even this administration to do something about Cuba. I think they are looking at what is happening in our homeland, this repression, unprecedented. The people coming out and express this desire to be free. You can hear all along that we want to be free. They don't talk about food. They don't talk about the vaccines.
Can we dismiss, I mean, I can, but I'm asking you as experts, this whole notion that this is about American sanctions or or COVID?
It has nothing to do with that. I listened to it for hours because I couldn't stay away from it because it's my people. And not once did I hear anybody say anything but libertad, abajo el comunismo, which means down with communism. And libertad again, that's all and a few expletives about Diaz Canel that I cannot say, but that's all. That's all they have said. I have never, in the hours and hours and hours that I have listened to what has come out of there, anything but libertad, down with communism.
They are putting their lives at risk. If they're seen on television with a sign attacking Diaz or a sign attacking Castro, Libertad,
Right.
even the song they're singing
Right.
is
Right.
an in your face because it
Right.
challenges this slogan
Exactly.
of the communist
Exactly.
regime.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've seen this. I saw this when I saw in Iran the first sign that says Ayatollah is a crook. I said, this country is moving in the right direction.
Right,
That
right.
guy's got a lot of guts.
Right.
They're going to kill him. Well,
Also, it is ridiculous when they claim that they don't have medicine because of the embargo. Actually, they can buy any medicine they want in the United States. But in reality, if they want to get medicine for the Cuban people, they can go to Canada, they can go to Mexico, much cheaper than the United States, and they can buy anywhere.
Right.
They don't buy it because they don't invest in that. They invest in their security,
yeah,
and they
just
invest in the
just
security
think of
apparatus.
all the money over the years they invested in foreign trying to undermine foreign governments.
Right.
They spent
Right.
billions doing that.
A
While their
little-
people
a
were
little
starving.
island.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little island getting into
Well, We're
the
gonna
affairs
keep
of the
in
whole
close
world.
touch. I can't imagine going through this and somebody not asking your advice, my friend. You can see how invested the Cuban American community is in this, and that's part of our hope. That despite the fact that we don't have the support from the government that we should have for anti-communism, we got a lot of support among the people. We've got to have that grow. We've got to get the information around it. Well, this is our last segment, and it'll be with Manolo Reyes. And let me cover for a second what we've gone over. I think we've shown that this was a spontaneous demonstration that broke out all over Cuba, very unusual, first time it ever happened. Just looking at the signs and the communications that our Cuban Americans have had with the people there, this was clearly a revolution. They want to overthrow an oppressive communist government. What's new about that? Every communist government in the world has been overthrown but China. And so that's what's going on. And the question is, are we going to support it or aren't we going to support it? We're going to let this moment in time in history to give liberty and freedom to a wonderful group of people. We're going to let it pass us by, or are we going to take advantage of it? The reality is that you, the American people, don't get all the facts about this. You never have. For some reason, and we can spend time examining that some other time, they've romanticized Castro. They romanticized Che Guevara. I mean, he's some kind of a matinee idol. And these people were homicidal maniacs. I've been told by Felix that who got to know Guevara because he commanded the group that killed him, that the guy liked to kill. He enjoyed it. That's what his men used to say about it. So this is what we're dealing with, and we have a regime now that who knows what they're going to do to these people. The guy who helped to do the song that's being so popular now was already in jail. And do we know how many people they've taken away? I mean, they don't tell you that, right?
Of course not, because they control the media, Mayor. And
Kind of like the Democrats do here.
And here's exactly like the Democrats here. And here's the problem. Believe it or not, now the regime has identified who's the enemy, and they put him away. I will bet you that they're either in jail or dead. And that's what they do. They take advantage of the situation. So beware. These people are fighting and claiming and asking and begging for freedom. That should be a lesson to our young kids at the university. That should be a lesson to our media, who's not even covering most of this because they don't want to tell the truth. And here is the problem. The biggest problem. How can we help Cuba? We help Cuba very simply by helping America. We need to solve our problems in our backyard. We need to solve the problems in California, in Chicago, in New York. We need to solve the problem in our schools. They're brainwashing our kids.
Yes, and part of
So
it is about communism.
we need to become healthy. Once we become healthy, once we have a strong army, once we have a strong police department, once we enforce the laws that exist in our books, then we can help our neighbor.
So what you're saying is we're giving the Cuban communists a very weak example.
No
We
question
look like
about
a very weak country that could be taken advantage of.
that. And we are allowing the people,
Not like a Reagan or a Trump.
they're allowing the people to blame the embargo. What embargo? Have you listened? Senator Rubio gave a powerful speech. Listen to what he had to say. These are facts. Cuba is not being blockaded by anybody, but by their own regime. And the people who are blockaded are the Cuban people.
Well, this has gone on for 60 years.
Correct.
All of a sudden, this has gone on for 60 years.
These people trade with all the countries in the world. They export, they import. What kind of a blockade? If you want a blockade, you put ships around the island.
I didn't see a song written about we want vaccines.
Correct.
I think the song that was written is we want liberty. We want freedom.
We need to show this in our universities. We need to show this in our high schools. We need to show this to CNN and NBC and
I want to
ABC.
go back
These are the
to
people who
beginning
need to know
because
this.
I think this is where the passion comes from for all of you. You left Cuba in 1961.
Correct.
On July 4th.
Correct.
This happens to be the anniversary, 68th or 69th anniversary of when Castro started the revolution.
59. It's 62 years ago.
Wow. So these are very important days. What did it feel like? How old were you?
I am now 73 years old.
Yeah.
I've been here since I was 13 years old.
So what did it feel like leaving your home? You were going to school there. You had friends there. It kind of happened pretty quickly. I mean, Castro comes in. It's about a year. It all blows up. So you must have had some good years there before that. What did
Cuba,
it feel like leaving your home and never being able to go back?
Cuba was the Mecca of America. Cuba had the same standard of living as the United States.
Yes.
Cuba had some of the more wonderful education in the world.
So you love the country.
So of course we love the country.
The country you left is not like the people leaving now.
Absolutely
People
not.
leaving now are leaving, getting killed. You left because this was like a shock. All of a sudden, your beautiful country is taken over, and it's a place you're going to get killed.
Mayor, when I left as a young kid, imagine the trauma. But imagine also the courage of mom and dad
Oh my
to
goodness!
send
Well,
a kid to a country that they didn't know, to a country that I didn't even speak the language. What a blessing it turned out to be. What a vision mom and dad had.
here's my concluding point. Here's an observation from an outsider. Do you in the Cuban American community, many of you, all the people I talked to today, and so many more out there, do you feel there's unfinished business?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely. And
That's gonna do it for you.
and what really hurts is to see my country, this country, because I love Cuba because I was born in Cuba, and so I love Spain because my parents were from Spain. But this is America. This is the only country in the world where you can be free. This is the only country in the world where everybody is dying to come in. Look at our border. Look at the Cubans begging for freedom, waving the American flag. What a lesson. What a lesson to our children. Those children who are being indoctrinated by people who do not understand that the ends justify the means, and these communists continue lying and making promises that will never be fulfilled. It will be the opposite. So I'll never forget what my father said. Don't ever lose this country.
We're not. Because we got people like you and the people I talked to today. You know, in the history of this country, very often we're renewed by new people who come here and understand what we have better than we do. Because when we live here, we get used to it. Abraham Lincoln faced this right around the time of the Civil War, and he was asked, he had a person that just became a citizen, and somebody whose family came over on the Mayflower. And the people asked him, kind of like they would ask Jesus, you know, these tough questions. They said to him, who's the better American? The guy who's been here for 200 years or this guy? He said, well, I don't know. I'm going to tell you why. America's not a country that's built on race, religion, ethnic background. America is built on ideas. Whoever believes in and understands those ideas better is the better American. He could have just got sworn in today, or his family could have been here for 100 years. And the one thing that the Cuban Americans have brought to us is a renewal of American patriotism, a renewal of what our role is in the world. If God granted us this freedom, we have the obligation to help other people get it. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank all your Cuban compatriots.
Never forget what Mr. Reagan said. Freedom is only a generation away from extinction. Never forget that.
I will never forget it. He was my hero. Thank you for joining us at the heart of what I would regard as the Cuban American resistance. It's been that way for 60 years, 62 years. This is, as I said at the beginning, this is the Francis Tavern of the Cuban movement, like it was for our American Revolution. This is where they come at night, political discussions, all day political discussions. There's something special about having had it here. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you learned how distorted and how edited and how censored the news you get is on this subject. And this is not a new phenomenon. This goes way back to the beginning of romanticizing this murderer, Castro, and his equally homicidal brother, Raul. These men have killed so many people, it's impossible to count. They destroyed a great country. But I'll tell you what they didn't do. They didn't destroy the desire for freedom in the hearts of these people, or the desire they have to go back and save those left behind.